Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Caris May, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is leading aircraftswoman Jen Bleasdale. Today marks the 75th anniversary of the fall of Java. This evening we will tell the story of Lieutenant Clifford Walter Patrick Lang, who was killed in the lead-up to the fall of Java. Today also marks International Women's Day for 2017. An all-female catapult party will assist in the delivery of today's last post ceremony in order to honour the service and sacrifice of all women who have served in war and operations. We are honoured to acknowledge Air Marshal Leo Davies, Chief of Air Force Australia, and Mrs Rhonda Davies, Warrant Officer Robert Stanwyck, Warrant Officer of the Air Force Australia, and Flight Lieutenant Lisa Stanwyck. We also welcome members of A Company 3rd Battalion, 1st Tour Vietnam, 1967 to 68. We would also like to acknowledge the delegation representing female employees from the Department of Veteran Affairs. We welcome all the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony from around Australia. During this evening, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors and students on behalf of the following schools. From South Australia, Unity College from Murray Bridge. From Victoria, St Anthony's Primary School from Noble Park, and Cairo Christian College from Druin. Australia's Federation Guard is a tri-service ceremonial unit of the Australian Defence Force. They provide a ceremonial presence at civil and military events and during visits to Australia by foreign dignitaries. The Guard will now dismount the catapult party from the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier. To commence this evening's ceremony, I would like to invite you all stand and join in singing the national anthem. Boys and girls, you may now be seated. The Australian War Memorial was a vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed at the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and other operations for over more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
This week marks the 75th anniversary of the Japanese invasion of Java in the Netherlands, East Indies, modern Indonesia. This evening, we remember Lieutenant Clifford Walter Patrick Lang from the 22nd Pioneer Battalion, who is believed to have died on the 4th of March, 1942. A former rugby international, Lang died on Java while serving with the small Australian force codenamed Black Force. Known to friends and family as Cliff, Clifford Walter Patrick Lang was born on the 2nd of July 1909 to Walter and Mary Anderson in Multan, a city in what was then British India, which now forms part of Pakistan. The Multan family later returned to Britain to live in Bletchley, Buckinghamshire. A talented sportsman, Cliff Lang attended the Dollar Academy in Scotland and later played rugby for Beckford in England. He migrated to Australia, where he played rugby for Footscray. A tough and hard player who could play in any position, Lang preferred the front row. His nickname, Haggis. In 1935, Lang was selected to represent Victoria against the touring Maori team from New Zealand. One of his teammates was Ernest Waring Dunlop. Lang and Dunlop played on the Victorian team against South Africa's Springboks 2 years later. In 1938, Lang was selected for Australia, playing 2 matches for the Wallabies as a prop against the touring New Zealand All Blacks. Following the outbreak of the Second World War, Lang enlisted in the militia in March 1940 and was posted to a machine gun battalion. In July, he enlisted in the volunteer Australian Imperial Force and joined the 22nd Pioneer Battalion. He was quickly promoted from acting corporal to acting sergeant. After nearly a year's training at Puckapunyal, Victoria, the 22nd Pioneer Battalion sailed for the Middle East in April 1941. In June, the Pioneers began their first campaign supporting the Australian 7th Division in the British invasion of Syria and Lebanon against the Vichy French. The Pioneers played prominent roles in actions fought around Murjajun and Damour. Sergeant Lang commanded a platoon during the fighting following the outbreak of the Pacific War. Most of the AIF were recalled from the Middle East. In early 1942, the 22nd Pioneer Battalion, along with the 22nd 3rd Machine Gun Battalion, a field company and other units sailed for Australia aboard the Orcades. With the Japanese advancing rapidly across Asia and the Pacific, the Orcades was diverted to Latvia, codenamed Black Force. The Australians fought a delaying action against the invading Japanese, beginning at Lu Wil Yang in Western Java on the 4th of March. Lang had been commissioned a few days earlier, almost on the eve of the Japanese invasion, and now commanded A Company's No. 3 Platoon. On the 4th of March, A Company attacked a party of Japanese machine gunners who had crossed the river near Lu Wil Yang in fighting around Gipito. Lieutenant Lang was hit in the hip and stomach. Several of his men were killed and wounded. Unable to move, Lang ordered his platoon to abandon him and withdraw. The platoon fell back. Lang was presumed to have died from his wounds. He was 32 years old. A few days later, the actions at Lu Wilyang and Gipito, the Dutch and then the British, Australians and Americans surrendered to the Japanese. An estimated 36 Australians of Black Force had been killed and 60 wounded. More than 2,700 became prisoners of war of the Japanese. From more than 800 men captured from the 2nd Pioneer Battalion, more than 250 would eventually die in captivity. Lang's body was later buried in Jakarta War Ceremony on Java. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left. Among 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. This is one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Clifford, Lieutenant Clifford, Walter Patrick Lang, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Boys and girls, could you please stand for the ode and last post?
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Catafalque Party present arms.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget.
Catafalque Party out words. Turn. Catafalque Party quick march.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We would like to thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today, and we wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.